They mocked the Black Maid at 11:48 p.m. 12 minutes later, the Rapture missed and he chose her. Raven Carter had always been seen as invisible inside the luxurious Atlanta hotel, but that night, everything changed. In the middle of a gala event, marked by rumors of the end of the world, she was humiliated in front of investors, treated like she didn't belong there. But as laughter echoed, real signs of danger began to emerge, and her courage would become the only barrier between order and chaos. What seemed like just another night at work turned into a battle of dignity, truth, and responsibility. Amid injustices, hidden secrets, and unexpected twists, Raven found herself facing choices that would change not only her life, but also the fate of everyone around her. And it was at that very turning point that something bigger than any rumor began to take shape. Before today's story begins, I want to make you a special invitation. Leave a comment below, telling us where you're watching from. I love seeing how far our stories can reach. And if you enjoy emotional love stories filled with resilience and happy endings, take a second to subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss any new content, and you'll help this space grow more and more, so we can keep bringing you stories that truly touch the heart. 11:48 p.m. The warm Atlanta breeze swept across the hotel rooftop like an electric whisper. The city lights rose like artificial constellations, and the background music, a smooth jazz with a modern beat, tried to mask the guests' unease. On discrete screens, a countdown ticked down from 0.12 on Anensha, fueling the buzz about the Rapture. Glasses clinked, laughs were measured, eyes darted nervously to phone clocks. The luxury was almost clinical. Tables with minimalist centerpieces, graphite linen napkins, waiters moving in choreographed rhythm. Raven Carter appeared through the side corridor, where the slate gray carpet muffled footsteps and side conversations. 30 years old, a dark-skinned black woman standing 5'6", with firm shoulders from standing all day. She wore her 4C natural curls up in a high puff that lifted her face, accentuating her always alert honey brown eyes. Her service uniform, a green outfit with worn white trim, fit cleanly over her frame, and her black sneakers showed signs of use on the soles. Her hands bore fine marks from cleaning supplies. In her pocket, a small rosary with matte beads, more a memory of home than a lucky charm. Raven pushed a low, silent cart, picking up folded napkins and empty bottles with the precision of someone who knew every inch of the place. She didn't draw attention except when trouble was brewing, and she, by instinct, spotted it before anyone else. At the service elevator door, the panel glowed with a blinking yellow. The main elevator was nearly full. The lights in the machine hallway further back flickered ever so slightly, something only a trained eye would notice. Raven narrowed her eyes, tilting her head slightly. She made a mental note. Check the power panel on the 32nd floor tomorrow. The flickering looked like a miscalibrated generator test. She parked the cart beside the public elevator, the one with mirrors along the walls, when a voice cut through the air, sharp as a metal drawer being slammed shut. "You stop." Jordan Price, night manager, 42, light-skinned, thinning hair combed to the side, navy suit that betrayed his rushed state, approached with an earpiece and a digital clipboard. His chin jutted forward, smile devoid of warmth. "This elevator is not for staff." Raven straightened, her fingers still on the cart handle. "I'm just finishing my shift, sir. I need to go down 2 floors to drop off the supplies," and he raised his hand, cutting her off. "Up here tonight, everything is about investor experience. Visuals, flow, vibe. A staff member in the guest elevator at 11:48 p.m.? Out of place." A few nearby heads turned. Whispers. Elegantly dressed guests watched as if they were seeing a short play unfold, curious about how it would end. A couple chuckled quietly, not out of joy, but with that nervous laughter of someone trying to side with the dominant force in the room. Raven breathed through her nose, the kind of breath that organizes pain before it reaches the eyes. Next to the panel, a digital number blinked, 1818. The elevator was at capacity. "Sir, that's exactly why I'm here." "It's full, and there are flickers in the service hallway lights. If everyone tries to go down at once because of the countdown, the risk is you getting in the way." Jordan adjusted his already perfectly centered tie. "And please, no technical lectures. You're housekeeping, right?" Raven felt the word hit, not because of the job itself, which she was proud of, but because of the tone. She swallowed what could have become tears. "Yes, sir. Raven Carter. And my job includes making sure nothing goes wrong at night." Behind them, a small group approached, clearing a path with smiles and handshakes. At the front, Adrian Whitmore, 38, white, 6'2", tailored black suit, trimmed beard, short dirty blonde hair, and steely blue-gray eyes that seemed to scan the room in silence. He carried himself like someone used to bearing weight. Firm chin, squared shoulders, unhurried steps. Adrian was talking to a British-accented investor when he caught Iwat out of the corner of his eye, the tension at the elevator door. He didn't stop walking but veered slightly. His gaze briefly settled on Raven and Jordan, then on the packed panel, and finally on the hallway lights giving tiny stutters. "Jordan." Adrian's voice had the gravity of someone used to ending debates without raising it. "Is everything all right here?" Jordan turned with rehearsed speed, a mechanical smile. "Mr. Whitmore, all good. Just aligning visual protocols for the guests. Keeping the standard, you know." Adrian nodded, his eyes returning to Raven. "What's the issue?" Raven held her posture, cart to the side, hands clasped to control the trembling. "Light panel flickers in the service corridor, sir, and the guest elevator is full. With the countdown to midnight, it's likely people will try to go down all at once. I'd recommend holding traffic for a few minutes and checking the generator adjustment currently under test." The British investor frowned. "Generator test during the event?" Jordan gave a short laugh. "It was completed earlier. She's confusing ambient light with..." The panel, almost as if responding, gave a small flicker before returning to steady brightness. Someone in the lobby muttered, "Did you see that?" Others chuckled, the tension turning into a spectacle. The countdown now read, 10:55. "Jordan?" Adrian said, not harshly but with command. "Check the generator status with the on-duty engineer. Now?" "That's unnecessary, sir. And we've got informal press here. No need to alarm." Adrian didn't raise his voice. "Now!" Jordan pressed his earpiece, muttered some codes, and turned away without acknowledging Raven. She stepped back slightly, refocusing on what mattered. People flow. Two women in long dresses approached, trying to get into the already full elevator. Raven raised an arm politely. "Please wait for the next one, just for safety." One of the women laughed off balance. "Safety? Sweetie, it's midnight or bust." The other added, "If the world's ending, I want to be in the lobby." Raven gave a slight, polite smile. Exactly why. Adrian was watching. It wasn't just what she said. It was how Raven had a kind of professionalism that didn't ask permission. It did what needed to be done. He shifted his gaze to the technical corridor lights, saw a second flicker, barely perceptible, and then looked at the countdown clock. Anaro pa 10 ajo 3. A waiter passed by with a tray of champagne. Adrian declined with a wave, his thoughts torn between protecting the brand and acting quickly. In his ear, the investor whispered, "Looks like your team has eyes in the right place." "Sometimes, the best censors are people," Adrian replied, quietly. Jordan reappeared with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Engineering confirms, all normal. Small flicker due to peak consumption. Nothing that would justify." He made a vague gesture toward Raven, as if brushing away invisible dust. "Interventions." Raven lowered her eyes to the cart. It wasn't fear, it was calculation. Let it go. Finish the shift. But the panel again read 1818, and she heard the subtle click of a relay switching in the far corridor, a sound most would mistake for a camera shutter. She lifted her head. "Mr. Whitmore, excuse me. Just 3 minutes to organize the line and avoid overload. I'll take the service elevator afterward." Jordan smiled at the guests, theatrically. "See? Dedication is admirable, but everyone should stick to their role. Don't make it personal." The whispers again. Raven felt her face heat up, but her voice came out firm. "I'm not making it personal. I'm making it safe." Adrian held Jordan's gaze a second longer than was comfortable. "Give her the 3 minutes." Jordan stood still, jaw clenched. "As you wish, sir." Raven took a breath, a simple "thank you" that sounded like both a truce and a promise. She moved the cart a few inches forward, creating a polite barrier, and gestured with her hand for the group to wait. The music changed tracks, more melancholic sax, and the city below stayed lit, indifferent to any prophecy. On the screen, 0901. At that point, no one knew, but those 3 minutes would open an invisible door between disaster avoided and respect earned. Adrian, still conflicted, stood a step back, enough to protect without imposing. He watched Raven's restraint, how she made the reason behind each gesture clear without belittling those waiting. From a distance, some investors whispered about protocols. Others were already filming the countdown with their phones, hunting for the perfect 0-minute clip. The initial humiliation had changed temperature. It still hurt, but it was starting to shine light on who really held the place together when the lights flickered. The sax shifted from melancholic to a tenser groove, like the city itself was holding its breath. The screen dropped from 0901 to 0858. Raven kept the cart forming a polite limit in front of the elevator, and Po, while smiling at the guests, tilted her head. That sound. It wasn't from the music. It came from the service corridor, a muffled beep, lasting 2 seconds, then silence, like a mechanical sigh holding back something bigger. "Please, next group wait 1 minute," she said, clear and kind. "It prevents overload." An older woman wearing a pearl necklace nodded, but behind her, a group picked up the pace. The elevator's mirrored panel reflected tense faces, and the digital number maxed out. Raven raised an open palm, breathing steadily. The beep returned, faint, like it was behind a metal door. Jordan appeared from the side, practiced smile in place, clipboard held to his chest. "I already said this isn't necessary. We need to keep the flow. The experience matters." "Sir, the generator in test mode is emitting a warning tone, and the elevator is at full capacity. We need to restrict access for a few minutes." Raven nodded toward the static number on the panel and the faintly flickering lights at the back without making a scene. Jordan leaned in, overly patient. "And I've already said, that's not a cleaner's job. Leave safety to people who understand it." The word jabbed like a splinter, But she didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her wounded. The muffled beep sounded again. 3 short pulses, spaced out. Raven did what life had taught her, solved without fighting. She grabbed the radio clipped to her belt, the name tag worn from time but, and called the one person who listened like she did. "Imani, check in, wherever you are." The reply came fast and warm, breath slightly rushed. "Talk to me, Rave." "Heard a triple beep from the 30-second service corridor, and the guest elevator's maxed out. Can you check the power panel quietly? Bring 2 low cones and discrete tape if you've got them." "On my way. 2 minutes." A smile was audible on the other end. "Promise you won't punch Jordan before I get there." Raven didn't smile outwardly, but her eyes softened at the corners. "Promise." Imani appeared in the corridor moments later, 27 years old, medium brown-skinned black woman, long box braids tied back, wearing the same uniform as Raven, but with a badge covered in stickers reading, "Be kind and safety first." She was 5'7", had a posture that never lowered its gaze, and deep eyes that always found solutions before blame. She carried a canvas bag with striped caution tape and 2 small rubber cones. "I'm here. Show me the soundtrack of the problem." She stepped into place without making a scene. Raven lowered her voice, like sharing a game strategy. "Elevators at capacity. Generators humming low. Let's mark off a waiting lane here. Nothing flashy. Just manage the flow. I'll stay with the elevator. You check the panel." Imani nodded, unrolling the tape like she was laying down a smile. With quick, subtle movements, she set up a mini corridor using the cones, forming a soft S-path that eased the pressure at the elevator doors. Raven turned the cart diagonally to allow room and spoke to the first person in line, a young man in an overly shiny suit, as naturally as if she were taxiing a plane. "Just a minute and a half, and you're good to go. That way we make sure everyone gets down together." "I pay a lot for this place," the man said, "but not quite ready to start a fight. I don't want to miss anything." "Exactly why?" Jordan watched the choreography take shape without his permission. The smile vanished. "What did I say about a cleaner's job? Remove that tape, now." Imani didn't look at him. She looked at Raven. "Want me to take it down?" Raven kept her voice calm, eyes on the panel. "The tape doesn't interfere with the experience. It organizes the flow, and it's backed by the hotel's internal safety policy. 3 minutes." She turned to Jordan just enough to remind him there were eyes around. "You have my word, sir." Adrian stood a few steps away, talking to 2 investors but clearly paying attention. He grabbed a glass of water, hand steady, and kept his eyes on behavior, not egos. He watched Imani disappear into the service corridor and return moments later, her brow drawn with 2 lines. She had seen something. "Rave." The secondary panels mislabeled. Imani whispered over the phone to avoid attention. "There's a breaker marked Landscape 3 that's feeding Backup A. Someone did a patch job without logging it. Can you get a pic without making a scene?" "Already did." "And the side duct smells like warm plastic." The muffled beep returned, clearer this time. Raven lifted a finger to the line. It wasn't a wait, it was a trust me. "Imani, stay close to the panel. If you hear a snap, call me right away." Jordan stepped forward, too close. "Take that tape down. I won't say it again." Raven met his eyes, voice respectful but irrefutable. "I'm taking responsibility for 3 minutes of order. You've got the engineering radio. I've got the public one. Which would you rather hold, tape or a complaint?" Guess up front, sensitive to the subtext, accepted the pause. More people gathered behind, but Imani's mini corridor softened the pressure. The elevator beeped with that irritated door chime sound, and then gave a small jolt that most mistook for normal movement. Raven felt it, through the floor. Imani, confirm. Mislabeled breaker. Smell from the duct. Triple beep. That's the generator warning a voltage dip, right? Or someone slacking, or someone messing where they shouldn't. Rave, if everyone rides down at once, that thing's gonna blow. Raven did what she always did when the world pushed for urgency. She used her voice as a brake. She turned to the row of tense faces. Folks, we just need 90 seconds. The elevator's full and the power system's adjusting load because of the event. If you can, please wait here. If anyone has mobility issues, I'll prioritize you next. A middle-aged woman held her husband's arm. She knows what she's doing. The group took a half step back. The screen read, Mats 1732. Jordan clicked his tongue, frustrated by authority being born where he hadn't granted it. He spun on his heel, discreetly signaled a security guard, trying to undo everything Raven had built, remove the tape. Quietly. The guard, a young man in a white shirt with an honest expression, looked at the tape, the elevator panel, the smoother moving line, and then at Raven. Sir, it seems to be working. I gave an order, Jordan snapped, cold. Adrian arrived just as the order clashed with common sense. What order, Jordan? Jordan reset his smile. Just making sure there are no unnecessary barriers. This young lady is exaggerating the risk. You may remove it. Leave it for 90 seconds, Adrian said, eyes still on the panel. And get the engineer into the service corridor. Now. Raven exhaled but didn't let her guard down. Her radio buzzed with a short message from Imani. Photo sent. Stickers on top of the original label. Ducks hotter than normal. Copy. Raven placed her hand on the cart, grounding herself. The muffled beep rang out a fourth time, closer now, and a faint ozone smell drifted in from the service corridor, nearly invisible, like freshly dried paint. The screen jumped to 0.07.01. Down below, the city kept going indifferent. Up here, a detail no larger than a wire separated luxury from chaos. Raven felt the floor vibrate for just a fraction of a second, and before the elevator closed behind someone rushing in, she gently stepped between the doors, triggering the sensor to reopen. 90 seconds, she repeated, but now her heart pounded in sync with the beeps. The elevator let out a mechanical sigh, a deep sound, almost like iron yawning. Then, from the service corridor, a crisp snap rang out, sharp as a match struck in a silent room. The snap echoed like a hidden warning, and before Raven could evaluate her next move, a sharp scream cut through the rooftop's music and background noise. An elegant woman, light-skinned, wearing a bright red dress reflecting the city lights, held her phone in shaking hands. On the screen, a feed in bold letters. The rapture will happen at midnight. Prepare yourself. She began to hyperventilate, almost sobbing, pointing at the screen showing Duro Chelsea 658. It's happening. Oh my God, it's happening now, she repeated, her voice pierced by panic. Next to her, a girl around 8 years old, light brown skin, brown hair in delicate braids with colorful beads, tugged at her mother's dress. Her chest was rising and falling unevenly, her eyes wide with panic. Raven noticed instantly. The child was trying to breathe and couldn't. The short cough and high-pitched wheeze confirmed what she feared, an asthma attack. Breathe, Chloe, breathe, the mother pleaded, but her panic only made her daughter worse. The pearl necklace shook on her neck as she bent over the girl, unsure of what to do. Raven left the cart and crossed the human barrier in seconds, posture firm, eyes locked on the girl. She knelt down, bringing her face close. "Hi, sweetheart. Look at me. Listen to me, okay? Hold my hand." Her voice was calm, low, unhurried, the same voice she used with her niece. The girl gripped Raven's fingers tightly, tears rolling down her face, air stuck in her throat. Raven signaled to the nearby security guard. "Call the medical team, now." The man hesitated, glancing at Jordan. Jordan frowned. "This isn't her job. She's causing a scene." Raven didn't flinch. "She's a child, sir. She can't breathe." The group around them made space. Some moved chairs. Others lifted their phones, recording every second. Raven kept her voice low. "Chloe, look here. Yes, look in my eyes. Breathe in slowly through your nose, like you're smelling a flower. Now out through your mouth, like blowing out a candle. That's it. Again with me. Flower, candle." The girl tried. The sound was rough, but her breathing started to find rhythm. Raven placed a hand on her back, guiding the motion. "You're doing great, sweetheart. One more time. Flower, candle." The mother cried, sobbing. "She doesn't have her inhaler. It's in the car. I don't know what to do." Raven stayed calm, even with her heart racing. "The medical team is already on the way. Keep breathing with me, Chloe. You're not alone." Jordan stepped forward, frustrated by the shift in attention. "Mr. Whitmore, you need to allow me to regain control. She's creating mass panic." Adrian, silent until now, raised his hand, firm. "No one is creating panic. She's saving a child." His blue-gray eyes locked on Jordan, voice low but with unquestionable authority. "Let her do her job." Silence took over, broken only by Chloe's uneven breathing. Raven, unfazed by cameras or hierarchy, continued guiding the girl. Moments later, 2 hotel paramedics arrived with an emergency kit. Raven stepped back just enough to make room, but the girl's hand still clung to hers like an anchor. On the screen, the clock dropped to 05:49. The tension of the end of the world still lingered, but everyone now knew what really mattered was the fragile breath of a child fighting for air. And in that instant, between collective fear and individual responsibility, Raven became the most indispensable presence of the night. If you've made it this far, comment "breathe." That way I'll know you're feeling the emotion of the story, and will confuse anyone who only reads the comments. The paramedics were taking the girl to the first aid room, and her mother, still shaking, thanked them through sobs. The crowd, once scattered by the clink of glasses and music, now watched in silence. On the screen, the numbers kept falling. 05, 11, 05, 10. The clock seemed to beat in sync with the hearts in the room. At that moment, Adrian Whitmore crossed the center of the rooftop. Tall, imposing, his dark gray suit perfectly fitted. He descended the 2 steps connecting the VIP area to the main lounge. His expression wasn't festive, but that of someone carrying the weight of every soul present on his shoulders. "I want to understand what's happening," he said, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. Jordan was the first to step forward. Sweat gleamed on his forehead, but his tone came soaked in false calm. "Mr. Whitmore, we had a situation." Employee Carter disrupted the flow of the event. She created barriers, incited panic, and encouraged hysteria over baseless rumors. Some guests exchanged surprised glances at the version being presented. Raven, still near the elevator, lifted her chin. Her face showed fatigue, but her dignity remained untouched. She didn't let Jordan's words go unanswered. "With all due respect, Mr. Whitmore," she said, her voice steady even under so many eyes. I didn't disrupt anything. The elevator was operating at capacity. The generator gave clear signs of overload, and the technical panel was tampered with. If we hadn't contained the flow, we could have had a failure. Adrian narrowed his eyes. Tampered with? Raven stepped forward. My colleague Imani documented it, swapped labels and a strong smell of overheated plastic. And beyond that, a child had an asthma attack right here in the crowd. I had to clear the way and call for help. If that's called causing a scene, then I'd rather be accused than watch in silence. The sincerity in her voice led a few guests to nod subtly. Jordan, uncomfortable, tried to regain control. Sir, of course she's exaggerating. If we allow this, any staff member will think they can set the pace of a high-end event. That damages the hotel's image. Adrian took a deep breath, gauging the silence around him. His eyes scanned the elevator panel, the tape on the floor, the tense faces. He didn't raise his voice, but his words carried more weight than any accusation. Image isn't built by ignoring risks, Jordan. If there's a sign of failure, we investigate before we judge. Accountability isn't a speech, it's action. Raven looked at him, surprised by his firmness. Jordan tried to respond, but Adrian raised a hand, ending the discussion. I want to see that technical panel now. And until then, no one touches anything. The crowd murmured, the tension shifting into anticipation. Raven pressed her lips together, holding back the emotion of finally being heard. If only partially. The screen read, Drusium Boilfor, 12. And in that thin line between trust and catastrophe, every second now seemed to signal that something bigger was still coming. Adrian headed for the service corridor with 2 security guards and the on-duty engineer, leaving behind the promise of verification. Raven took a deep breath, her eyes fixed on the ground for a moment, until she felt Imani's presence beside her. Her friend stepped close quietly, lowering her voice so only Raven could hear. Rave, there's more going on here, she whispered, holding up her phone with the photo of the tampered panel. In the last 3 weeks, they've done 2 emergency maintenance visits on this floor. Each one cost a fortune, but nothing changed. The lights still flicker, the air conditioning freezes, and now this. Raven looked up, memories lighting up like falling dominoes. You mean those receipts that showed up in the tech closet? I saw them myself. The documents mentioned parts from Renshaw Electric, but the labels on the cables were from another brand. A much cheaper one. Imani nodded slowly, eyes serious. And what if it's not just carelessness? What if someone's inflating costs and purposely keeping things unstable? That way, they always justify more maintenance. Raven's heart raced. The injustices she carried every day, dismissive looks, quiet humiliations, invisible labor, now had a new layer, a web of fraud hidden beneath the luxury, putting lives at risk. Imani, this isn't just a technical issue. If someone's skimming, they're sabotaging the hotel's standards. And if something goes wrong tonight, we're the ones who pay for trying to warn people. Her friend touched her arm. Firm. You've always seen what others pretend not to, but be careful. People who steal like this don't like witnesses. Raven took a deep breath, lifting her chin again. I won't stay quiet, Imani. Not after what happened with that girl. If someone's playing with safety for money, it's going to come out. Imani looked around, gauging the risk. Then store those memories right here, she said, patting the pocket of Raven's uniform. Receipts, labels, inconsistencies. That might be the key to turning this whole thing around. The big screen flashed Goonoro 315. The lights gave a brief flicker, as if the building itself were confirming the silent accusation. Raven felt the weight of something much bigger about to be revealed, and without realizing it, She was already holding the seed of a plot twist that could change not just the night, but the entire fate of that place. The screen lit up in vibrant red. 003 molas. The rooftop buzz turned into a nervous murmur, and the sparkle of champagne glasses no longer looked like glamour, but collective anxiety. The foyer lights began to flicker like candles in the wind. Some guests looked up, others down at their phones, and the rumor of Rapture at midnight gained new momentum. When the clock jumped to EU002.1, a large group rushed toward the main elevator, men with loosened ties, women in long dresses holding their hems to avoid tripping. Their steps were hurried, frantic. Within seconds, the elevator door was surrounded, people pushing to get in all at once. Raven stepped forward, her cleaning cart in front of her like a shield. Her brown eyes shone with determination. She raised her voice above everyone else, and the strength of her tone stopped even the most impatient. One at a time. If everyone gets in together, the elevator will overload. The silence wasn't total, but the impact of her courage held the flow back for a moment. Still, some tried to push through, indignant at the idea of obeying a maid. Raven wedged the cart between the door and the group, using her entire body as a barrier. "I said, one at a time?" she repeated, her muscles tense, her breath steady. There was an authority in her tone that didn't come from a badge. It came from conviction. A murmur echoed among the guests. "She's right." The panel flickered. Another guest took a step back, and the group began to yield, though still reluctantly. At that moment, the radio on Raven's belt crackled with the rushed voice of the on-duty engineer. "Who's in the foyer?" "I need someone to access the generator panel now. It's misconfigured. If we don't fix it, we're going to have a blackout at 00. Raven grabbed the radio, pressing the button firmly. "This is Raven Carter. I hear you. Guide me." There was a brief silence on the other end, as if the engineer was surprised to hear that voice. "Okay, Raven. Go to the right side of the board. There's a breaker marked Backup A. It shouldn't be on at the same time as Landscape 3. It's phantom overload. You have to shut one of them off before midnight." The foyer lights flickered harder, and the screen showed E0.01 to 103. The crowd held their breath. Raven held the radio in one hand, and with the other opened the metal panel next to the service door. The scent of heat escaped, triggering Imani's earlier warning in her memory. "Which one exactly?" she asked, sweat running down her temple. "The one on the left, second row. But hold tight and switch it off firmly. If you hesitate, it might spark." She looked at Imani, who nodded silently. The whole world seemed to pause to see whether an invisible woman would have the courage to touch the electric heart of a multi-million-dollar building. Raven took a deep breath, thought of the child who had just fought for air, and flipped the breaker with all her strength. The snap was loud and sharp, and for a second, darkness covered the entire foyer. The screen showed 0. And then, as if the building itself had chosen to live, the lights returned, clean and steady, firmer than before. The elevator dinged, ready to receive passengers in a controlled flow. The guests looked around, stunned, some clapping instinctively. Raven still held the panel, her heart racing. Jordan, pale, couldn't form a single word. Adrian, who had been watching closely, kept his eyes on her with something new, no longer just respect, but admiration. Midnight had arrived. The rapture didn't come, but the courage of a maid had prevented the luxury of the night from ending in chaos. If you've made it this far, comment courage. That way I'll know you're feeling the power of the story. and will confuse the ones who only read the comments. The stabilized lights lit the hall as if nothing had happened. But the silence told a different story. The screen, which moments ago had been counting down in red, now showed only Dawanu Japrakas, frozen, unmoving. Midnight had arrived. There were no trumpets, no mystical signs, just a collective awkwardness in the air, the weight of those who expected a spectacle and received only the reflection of their own beliefs. Guests exchanged glances, some laughed nervously, others lowered their phones. The buzz that now spread wasn't about the rapture, but about what they had just witnessed. An employee risking her own body to stop a disaster. Adrian, still near the panel, rubbed his chin, thoughtful. His blue-gray gaze traveled to Raven, still standing next to her cleaning cart, steady despite the sweat shining on her forehead. He turned to the shift engineer. "I want the full generator logs from the last 4 weeks, and the list of all maintenance work orders." The engineer nodded immediately, pulling out a tablet. "Yes, Mr. Whitmore." Jordan, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, stepped forward, a forced smile glued to his face. "Sir, with all due respect, we can't expose internal documents in front of the guests. It'll look like management weakness. I can handle this quietly tomorrow." Adrian turned to him slowly, his voice low but full of authority. "Discretion is one thing, negligence is another. Tonight we nearly had a blackout during a gala. I'm not waiting until tomorrow to find out why." Some guests murmured in agreement. Jordan tried to hold Adrian's gaze, but the confidence he once wore like armor was now crumbling. Raven took a deep breath and, knowing the risk, raised her voice. "Mr. Whitmore, if I may, Imani and I noticed inconsistencies in the technical closets. Part labels didn't match the invoices, and there were receipts for high-cost maintenance that didn't fix anything. This isn't an accident, it's a pattern." The room froze for a moment. Even the skeptics remembered the flickering lights, the elevator tension, the child gasping for air. The pieces of the puzzle were connecting in front of everyone. Jordan tried to laugh, but his voice wavered. It's natural that a staff member wouldn't understand technical specs. These assumptions can't be taken seriously. But the room was no longer on his side. Guests whispered, some casting disapproving looks. Adrian raised a hand, silencing the room. "That's enough, Jordan. Tonight made it clear that one employee's prudence saved this event, and it also made it clear that we need to review a lot more than tonight's schedule." The weight of those words landed like a verdict. Raven stood tall, her heart pounding, but she didn't lower her gaze. For the first time, she wasn't invisible. And in that luxurious hall, the midnight that had promised the end of the world brought a different truth. The slow fall of someone who relied on power without responsibility. The silence in the hall was broken by the clicking of keys from the IT engineer, a thin man with rounded glasses, typing feverishly at his laptop. The screen reflected lines of emails, internal records, and digital authorizations. He looked up, visibly pale. "Mr. Whitmore." "I found something?" Adrian stepped closer, all eyes focused on what was about to be revealed. The engineer turned the laptop so everyone could see. "Here are maintenance orders approved in your name, but the server header shows they weren't sent from your terminal. They were generated from Jordan's workstation." A gasp rippled across the room like silent thunder. Jordan, ghost white, tried to jump in. "That's impossible. Anyone could have used my workstation." "That system's vulnerable." The engineer shook his head. Firm. "No, sir. The logs confirm login with your personal password at the exact times the approvals were submitted. And cross-referencing the purchase records, There are parts billed at 3 times the market price and an intentionally incorrect configuration in the generator. It was only a matter of time before it caused a total collapse. The lights, once threatening, now shone like spotlights on Jordan's face, exposed with no way out. Some guests stepped back, shocked. Raven remained silent, but her heavy breathing betrayed the tension of witnessing justice arrive in an unexpected way. Adrian stepped closer to Jordan, his deep voice echoing through the hall. "You dared to use my name to defraud this hotel. You put hundreds of lives at risk, including children's, out of greed and neglect. This isn't just betrayal, it's a crime." Jordan tried to speak, but the words died in his throat. Adrian's authority, backed by evidence, crushed him in front of everyone. "You're fired, Jordan. As of this moment, you're no longer a part of this company. And know this, all evidence will be turned over to the proper authorities." The impact of those words landed like a final sentence. The guests exhaled, some even clapped quietly. Jordan, powerless, was escorted out of the hall by security. Adrian, still at the center of the room, raised his voice to everyone. "Let it be known, no employee of this hotel will pay the price for mistakes they didn't make. We will review contracts, restore our team, and make sure labor laws are followed to the letter. The standard of this house will not be built on injustice, but on accountability." The eyes that had once been doubtful now looked at Raven with respect and admiration. She remained composed, but inside her heart pulsed, not with pride, but because, for the first time, truth had won. The staff was still gathered in the hall when Adrian, firm yet more human than ever, began to speak. Silence settled instantly. Everyone waited for what he would say after the scandal that had just unfolded in front of so many witnesses. Adrian looked toward Raven, who stood tall, still in uniform, hands calmly folded in front of her. "This night showed me more than numbers, contracts, or reputation. It showed me character, and it also revealed serious failures, not just technical ones, but human ones. That's why, in front of all of you, I want to acknowledge a mistake that should never have happened." He took a deep breath, as if carrying the weight of responsibility. Raven Carter was unjustly humiliated, treated as invisible when, in truth, she was the person who kept everyone safe. As CEO of this hotel, I owe her a public apology. A murmur of surprise swept through the staff. Raven, emotional, placed a hand over her chest, trying to hold back the tears pushing to the surface. Adrian continued, "As of today, Raven Carter will no longer be the employee so many insisted on not seeing. She will be our new head of guest safety and experience. She will receive training, the recognition she deserves, and adjusted hours so she can care for her mother without sacrificing her career. Because talent and dedication cannot be ignored." Emotion took over the room. Imani, visibly proud, squeezed her friend's hand tightly. Adrian then made another announcement. "And to ensure a different future, we're launching a scholarship program for technical certification for our frontline employees. The first person enrolled is already here, Imani Thompson." Imani put her hands to her face. Surprised. "Mr. Whitmore, I don't even know how to thank you." Adrian smiled gently. "You don't need to thank me. Just take the opportunity that's always been denied to you. That's real merit." Later, in a more private moment, Adrian found Raven in the now nearly empty lobby. The lights reflected her calm expression, but there was a new shine in her eyes. He approached slowly, respecting the intimacy of the moment. "Raven," he began softly, "you faced fear, injustice, and still found space to care for others. That wasn't just courage, It was humanity. He paused, letting the words land. I admire you, not just as a professional, but as a woman. Raven looked away briefly, breathing deeply. I don't know what to say, Mr. Whitmore. He corrected her, almost in a whisper. Adrian, just Adrian, if that's okay. I don't want to rush anything, but I'd like to ask you to dinner. Not as CEO and employee, as a man who wants to get to know, without hurry, the woman who changed his view of the world. Raven looked up, touched by the sincerity. She stayed quiet for a few seconds, then gave a shy smile. One full of meaning. If you've made it this far, comment merit. That way I'll know you're feeling the emotion of this story, and will confuse those who only read the comments. A few weeks passed since the night when everyone feared the end of the world and instead witnessed the truth come to light. The hotel in downtown Atlanta now appeared on local newspaper headlines. Safety and service standards recognized nationally. The facade gleamed like never before. But what held that shine was something invisible: character, courage, and restoration. In the grand ballroom, Raven Carter, now wearing a formal uniform and a new badge reading Head of Guest Safety and Experience, led the team's first official training. Her voice was steady, but filled with emotion. That night taught us that responsibility can't be outsourced. Every detail matters. What could have been a tragedy became proof of unity. As she spoke, she remembered the tension of holding the cleaning cart against the crowd, the pain of the laughter that echoed in her ears, and the unexpected strength that had risen from within her. Imani, seated in the front row, looked up with hope in her eyes. With the scholarship program launched by Adrian, she was already preparing for her first technical certification. Raven made a point to mention her in the presentation. And don't forget, when one of us rises, we all rise. Change starts from the bottom, but it reaches the top. The room applauded, not out of formality, but from genuine recognition. Later, at dusk, Raven and Adrian walked side by side through the hotel's outdoor garden. There were no spotlights, no gala guests, just the soft sound of the fountain and the Atlanta night breeze. Adrian stopped, took his hands out of his suit pockets, and looked at her sincerely. You didn't just change this place, Raven. You changed me. I've learned that it's not power that makes a leader, but the courage to face the truth. I want to be by your side, not in a rush, but for real. Raven took a deep breath, her brown eyes reflecting the city lights in the distance. We don't need a countdown to know the value of what we have. What matters is building it day by day, he smiled, and together they walked on in silence, but a silence that said more than any words. In the final shot, the camera lingers on the moment Raven, Imani, and the entire team post a new procedure board on the wall, each line signed by hands that had once lived the pain of invisibility. Now, every signature was a pact of dignity and care. Adrian, off in the background, watched with quiet pride. The message still echoed. When fear screams, run. Truth and responsibility hold up those who stay and care. The rapture never came. What came was character, community, and the kind of love that doesn't seek spectacle, but builds roots. So, what did you think of this story? I really want to hear your honest opinion. Leave a rating from 0 to 10 in the comments so I can understand how deeply this story touched you. If you liked it, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone special, and subscribe to the channel to catch the next stories. And before you go, I've already picked out another emotional narrative that's sure to touch your heart even more.